Sometimes you get those jobs that you really wish you just had not started. This is one of those particular jobs. So this is my Ferguson 3V32. So it's Ferguson VideoStar 3V32. It has long play and all of the standard features that you find on this particular JVC clone. But what I was beginning to experience was problems with fast forwarding and playback. So if you tried to play back, the machine would immediately shut down because it didn't note any motion on the take-up spool. So there is a sensor underneath the take-up spool and the supply spool which notes motion or movement, and if you have no movement or motion, it will actually stop the machine and eject the tape. Now, what I thought initially was, okay, I've had this problem before on 3V31, I just need to replace the idler, and as luck has it, I have a brand new idler, which you can see in the picture here, which I will fit to the machine. However, when I installed the idler, I lost all form of playback, fast forward, rewind, everything. Nothing would work at all. So what would happen is you would put the tape into the machine and you would have the machine do its check for tension using the take-up spool, so it will actually sort of momentarily engage the motor to engage the idler, which would then rotate the take-up spool and just measure tension against the tape. If there was no tension, so in other words if the motor would slip, the machine would then eject the tape. If there is tension, the machine will go on to the next phase, which is to allow you to play back and do any of the other deck functions that you need to do. So what I have discovered in this adventure is the spring that's on top of the idler can be adjusted by rotating the top ever so slightly, so that can adjust the tension on the spring, although it does seem to bias it slightly from either the take-up spool or the rewind spool. Ideally it should be in line with the actual point where the spring actually goes on to, so you shouldn't really have to adjust that at all. I did use a replacement spring, thinking that the problem may be the spring itself. I also tried a couple of other bits and pieces using a different idler tyre, also sort of putting a belt or a smaller idler underneath and then putting the idler on top to sort of try and decrease the gap between the idler and the take-up spool, and also disconnecting one of the back tension brakes on the take-up spool. That act of disconnecting the back tension brake and also sleeving the motor spindle itself with a piece of slightly rough plastic does seem to have restored my capability to play back. However, it's not perfect. I don't have any fast forward or rewind capabilities, but I can at least play back again. Now, what I'm going to be doing next is actually taking some rubber restore, which I've got on order at the moment, and using the rubber restore on the rubber idler that surrounds the take-up and supply spool, because there is a big ring of rubber, sort of like a large rubber idler, actually round the take-up and supply spools. So I'm hoping by applying some rubber renew on those, I'll be able to take some of the shine off of the rubber and restore those, so I do actually have some kind of grip again. And also I will then remove, as an experiment, the sleeve that I've put over the motor spindle, because it shouldn't really be there, to be honest. It was something I was doing as an attempt to try and get this working. I'll also then re-engage the brake mechanism so that we actually have properly braked take-up spool. The problem, if you don't actually have the brake on there, it can sort of cause the tape to potentially unravel, which isn't the best thing and certainly not something you particularly want to happen. So it is best to have everything in place. I mean, they put these things there for a reason. There's no point disabling them for the sake of trying to repair it, because really that's a bodge, and that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to bodge, we're here to try and make it work properly. So, in the next episode, I'm going to be applying some of the rubber renew and hopefully restoring the machine back to former operation, but hopefully also fixing the lack of fast forward and the intermittent playback. To be honest, it's a very nice machine. If I find that that still isn't yielding any kind of sort of repair or anything, I'm going to keep my eye out for a slightly downhill broken 3V31, which still plays back, but say may cosmetically be impaired, and nick a load of bits out of that. The 3V32 is just that sort of little bit more special because you've got the long play facility, and it's just it is a nice looking deck, and it's actually one of the most expensive second-hand VHS machines I've ever bought. It originally cost me about 3 years ago £120. Back then it was allegedly fully serviced, and I think it's now come up to that point with light use where it needs just sort of like another little service just to keep it going. The upper head drum certainly is in good shape, so that may have been replaced at some point in the recent past, and the belts actually underneath seem to be in good shape as well. The only one that isn't in good shape is the loading tray belt, but those loading cradles are notorious for being a bit rubbish, let's say. So I'm going to get another belt for the loading cradle and probably replace that as par for the course with the rest of the unit. Anyway, hopefully you would have found this video useful, and in a bit we'll be going on to the next clip, which is me talking about this particular issue live. So I left this project for a couple of hours and I've come back to it, as I don't like to leave these things unfinished, especially when it's such a simple repair, in this case just replacing the idler and idler pulley, idler tyre rather. So what I did is I've gone for a slightly different approach. I've sleeved the actual motor spindle with a piece of plastic which I've roughed up slightly with some 800 grade wet and dry. This isn't the preferred approach for a lot of people, but at the moment it seems to have, if I hit play, restored forward motion. However, I still don't have... Or do I? No, I still don't have fast forward search. I don't seem to have fast forward either at the moment, or rewind. But we do have playback, which is a step on from where we were. I haven't put this piece back in yet, which is quite important because it does seem to keep the idler in place, so that may actually restore some of the functionality. I also need to adjust the spring on the top of the idler assembly. Now, I found an older idler from another deck, which is this one, and I actually noticed that it seemed to be a little bit bigger than the one that's in there. So if I compare that one there, and see if I can find the one that was originally out of the machine. Just see if my theory holds any water. There seems to be a size difference, but I'm not certain. I'm really not sure if it's the same or not. I think the one for the 3V31, which is this one, is slightly smaller. No, sorry, this one's the 3V. No, they're the same. Okay, I thought they were different. My mistake. So one of them came from a 23, one of them came from a 31. The one that's in there at the moment is destined for a 31. So I'm hoping that that has restored playback for the time being. Next steps is to probably get some rubber renew spray and actually sort of apply that to the tyre, see if I can make it a bit stickier, as it does seem to be that that is causing me a lot of the issues I'm experiencing. I also noticed on the take-up spool one of the brake mechanisms was not releasing, so I've disconnected that for the time being. What that may mean is if I do the fast forward search, it may sort of go on a bit too far and sort of try and over tension tape. I mean, it is there to maintain tape tension, so I really need to get that reinstated. As stated earlier in the video, the reason for sort of actually performing this job was the machine was not fast forwarding and it was beginning to not play properly either. So we went from a situation where we had playback and no fast forward to no playback and, well, nothing really. Right, so I'm just going to pause this video and put that back spring back in, see if that makes a difference for things. So we've reassembled the unit now. So we've got the pulley here. This top piece should technically be 90 degrees, sorry, like that, so it's parallel like that, but I have found you can adjust the tension on it to get a bit more tension on the spring, which should theoretically pull it closer when it's in a situation where it can obviously play back. So let's put the cradle, let's rest it in for a second. Obviously not screwed in, but the cradle can be adjusted slightly as well if needs be. So let's stick the tape in. So it's measured the back tension. It seems that it's got enough tension as it's not cycling the motor. Hit play. Got playback. Still no fast forward on the search. And it's trying, and we do have fast forward on that. Let's see if we have a rewind. Sadly, no rewind. Yeah, I think we will try a bit of rubber renew on that pulley. But the main thing is we do seem to have playback again, so I can put the machine back together and it can be used, which is good. That's the other annoying thing, is the loading belt on this is gone, so I need to get another belt and strip down the loading mech, which is annoying, but half of the course for these things. There we go. Right, let's get this reassembled and we should be done. And we're back together. And as you can see, we seem to have playback. I've left the sound down so I don't want to get a content match or anything. But sound does seem to work. So let's try some of the functions. Pause. That's working well. Playback is obviously working. And let's see if it will fast forward. No. Will it rewind? No. Let's see if it will rewind. No. Let's try play again. Play is fine. Will it do an X2? Yes, it will, funnily enough. Okay, let's see if I can track that out at all. Yeah, I can track out the noise on that. Oh, I need to track that there. So we've restored a level of functionality. It doesn't rewind or fast forward, but it does play back, which is really all I'm using it for at the minute. The next thing I'm going to try is, as I say, some rubber renew. I might also try replacing the sleeve on the motor spindle with a piece of rubber hose, very thin rubber hose, almost sort of like elastic band sort of type hose, you know, the sort of the hose that's very, very tight. Hopefully with rubber on rubber we should have a bit more friction to play with. I'm hoping also that the rubber renew on the idler, even though the idler is technically brand new, obviously it can't account for the fact that it's been sort of stored for a while, so it's obviously going to have aged to a certain extent, but you know, it will be interesting to see if that resolves the other issues with the other deck functions. Anyway, that's it for now. If you have found this video useful, don't forget to hit that like button, and also consider subscribing for more upcoming fascinating hobbies. Thank you very much for watching.